But here's my pick. I'm going to go with these guys, the Vegas Golden Knights, in 7 games. And Harper, I'm really hoping that you pick Florida because Casey and I are both going Vegas, and I've bet against Florida every single series, and I need someone to mush them. So please, Harper, can you pick Florida to win this series? Please.
Pick them in 4 as well.
You're now listening to the Boys in the Booth podcast with your hosts, Harper Cody, Chad Melbourne, and Casey Abrams.
That's a big one.
Yeah!
Good evening and welcome to episode 172 of the Boys in the Booth podcast. Cody, Abrams, and Melbourne, all 3 of us with you for this one. Boys, the weather is fantastic this week. We're getting into June almost. The Boys in the Booth Ball Hockey Classic, glad I didn't screw that up, is right around the corner. We're getting closer and closer. You can see the beautiful new rings that the winning team is going to be wearing on our Instagram. You can check that out too. So exciting times ahead. How you guys doing?
Doing good, Harp. It's hot today. Summer is officially in, and that means I am a busy boy. Been playing floor hockey, golf, baseball, going to, out on the water, and basically have something scheduled every weekend for the next 6 weekends. So we played our first golf tournament on the weekend. We were 8 under. I think we were 2 strokes back from the win, so that hurt, especially when we had a couple lip outs. And yeah, it's been fun. Kind of in the golf mind state instead of mindset. What? State of mind. Golfing state of mind.
There you go.
Instead of boys, I'm having a tough one today. I thought someone on this podcast was named Cody Abrams for a second, but it's just Harper's last name and mine. Let's move on to chat.
What's that Jay-Z song, Case? It's Empire Mind State, I think it's called. Empire Mind State. Yeah, boys, doing well, Case. I'm in the same mind space as you are right now. The golf mindset. Got out last weekend and the weekend before as well. Paige is actually away on business right now until Thursday, and she's been away all week. So I've got the place to myself, and naturally, I've got the putting green set up because I'm trying to go low this summer, and I'm trying to get a head start here on the tournament that we're prepping for coming up in Collingwood, Case. So looking forward to that, and hopefully we can go lower than 8 under like you did last weekend. But other than that, like Harper, like you mentioned off the top, man, so excited for the Boys in the Booth Ball Hockey Classic, formerly known as the Pepsi Cup. It's the ball hockey tournament we do every year. Once again, we'll be doing a video on it this year, and it's going to be an absolute blast. We have the rings. They came in, they look phenomenal, and the jerseys are in too, and they look equally as great. And shout out to my buddy Christian at Toronto Tees who hooked us up with those because, I went in, placed the order in store, and then honestly, it was like a week and a half later, they're done and they look like incredible. And he assured me that, the logos are on there and they're going to last forever. So shout out to Christian at Toronto Tees for helping us out there. And yeah, just generally excited for that tournament and all of the summer shenanigans coming up. And it truly feels like summer starting today because as I look at my phone, it's 25 degrees and sunny. Harper, How you doing?
I'm good, man. It's amazing how much the sunshine and nice weather just impacts your mood. So I feel great. Lots to look forward to for the month of June. Really similar for me as well, Case. There's something every single weekend, but looking at that June 24th date and circling that one big time for the big tournament out in Toledo. So looking forward to that for sure, and everything else to come. And again, if you want to have a backstory on the tournament and more information, see the rosters and all of that, you can go to our website, boysinthebooth.com. So, boys, we'll keep this one nice and quick. Obviously, because there are only 2 teams remaining. We have a Stanley Cup final between the Vegas Golden Knights Knights, who took out the Dallas Stars in 6 games. And, of course, before them, the Florida Panthers, who swept the Carolina Hurricanes in the Eastern Conference Finals. So one of these two franchises is going to win their first ever Stanley Cup. Of course, Florida is back in the Cup Finals for the first time since '96, and then the Vegas Golden Knights are back there for the first time since their inaugural season back in 2018 when they lost to the Washington Capitals. So we'll get into that, and then our Conn Smythe Trophy picks as well for both sides. So let's get into our predictions. And Case, do you want to go first, or should we start with Chad?
Yeah, I'll go first, and I'm going to do something bold here. I'm going to predict that a team is going to win their first Stanley Cup this season, so yeah, put your money on that one. And it's been kind of interesting to see these two arise as the two teams that I picked in our pre-playoff predictions were the Boston Bruins and the Dallas Stars in the Stanley Cup final. Well, these are the teams that beat them. So that's made my decision a lot harder. If one of these teams had beat the team I'd picked in the finals and the other didn't, then I'd go with that team. But I don't really know. It's been kind of a game time decision. I've looked at the team, and both of them are playing fairly similar, where it's their stars that are really shining, and the bottom 6 is just absolutely banging bodies every single night. Playoff hockey, and it is the depth on both sides that is really the story here. And then your stars putting the puck in the net. Matthew Tkachuk has been phenomenal. Verhaeghe, I wish the Leafs never gave him up. Had to throw that shot in there. Carlson's back to year 1 form of the Vegas Golden Knights. Marchessault, he's never really tapered off as much as Carlson, but he's been phenomenal as well. Yep. Stone, Eichel, all these guys are chipping in. I've kind of been a doubter of Florida, as everyone has all year long. And at this point, I kind of want them to win. So I think I'm going to continue to doubt them. I'm going to take Vegas, and I'm going to take them in 7. Here's why. It's the deeper depth. They're the Marianas Trench of depth in the playoffs here. And it's really showing, because it's their second tier of stars that are scoring all the goals. It's not Eichel, it's not Stone, it's Marchessault and Carlson. And their defense depth, phenomenal. The one thing where I'm definitely giving Florida the edge is momentum. This team is the 8th seed facing the number 1 seed in the West, of course. Of course it's going to play out like that, like storybook ending. It's momentum, and goaltending is Florida's really their strengths here. So it's all gonna be about the first 2 games of this series. I think Vegas has to come out flying. They've got to win one or both of those games, or they're doomed to Florida. But yeah, that being said, I'm taking Vegas in 7.
That's a bold pick, betting against Bobrovsky, the best goaltender in the playoffs right now.
Adin Hill's been good, man.
Adin Hill has been very good as well. That's right. And actually, I was just looking at it before we hopped on in terms of goals saved above expected per 60, so per game played. Adin Hill is in 4th, and Bobrovsky is in 2nd. Shesterkin is in 3rd, and Jack Campbell is in 1st place with the most goals saved above expected per 60. So that's a bit of an interesting stat there. Obviously, it's a counting stat. It's a cumulative stat. So Bobrovsky is at the top by a wide margin because he's played the most games, but he has been phenomenal right from when he went in I want to say game 5 against Boston, game 4 maybe against them. He's just been incredible. So it's hard to bet against him. That being said, it's hard to bet against the other guys as well on the other side, because Adin Hill, like you guys have mentioned, has been a rock. They've been getting incredible depth scoring up and down their lineup. Jack Eichel has emerged into a true superstar. By the way, in his first ever playoffs, going to the Cup final. What a joke. Like, that's just like the storylines in this series is kind of crazy, and that's a big one there for sure. And then the defense on Vegas, like you mentioned, Case, are just much better than Florida's defense, I think. So it's going to be a close series. So can we at least, before I do make my official pick, can we at least say this? let's hope we get a close series. Let's hope we get a 7-game series. Because
absolutely,
in the conference finals, we almost had double sweeps. Sweeps.
Man.
I mean, I know it ended in 6 in Dallas, but
it's a shame. Well, for one, it's a shame Dallas lost because I put the bet on them back in early December. That would have been sweet to hit. But it's a shame that Dallas and Miami Heat, their games were on the same night every night and not staggered, because if the Miami Heat completed that comeback the night before Dallas and Vegas went to game 6, who knows, would they have been anything's possible, What did
in case if the Celtics did it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm all over the place here.
Celtics over the Heat, yes.
Yeah. They needed to feed off each other is what I was getting at, and instead they're playing at the same
100%.
time the whole time. Anyways. Sorry, Chad, I am going to cut you off one more thing, because I had this in my notes and I had to mention it, and we're talking about depth of the Vegas Golden Knights. I have to talk about Barbashev, who has been phenomenal. He had 46 points in 82 games in the regular season, while he's gotten 6 goals, 9 assists in 17 games. That's 15 points in 17 games in the playoffs. And he's 15th in hits as well. So he's an absolute bowling ball out there. But yeah, continue.
He very much is. And I think he's up after this year. And if that's the case, he's going to get paid in free agency. If that's the case, I could be wrong. I think this is his last year, though. Harper, do you know? I hate to put you on the spot, but do you know if this is the last year of his deal?
I believe so. I believe it is.
Well, we can look into that, and if I'm wrong, you can correct me in the comments. But yeah, he will get paid on his next deal because he's putting in a performance in these playoffs, that's for sure. But here's my pick. I'm going to go with these guys, the Vegas Golden Knights, in 7 games. And Harper, I'm really hoping that you pick Florida, because Casey and I are both going Vegas, and I've bet against Florida every single series, and I need someone to mush them. So please, Harper, can you pick Florida to win this series? Please.
Pick them in 4 as well.
So quickly, yes, this is the final year of Barbashev's deal.
Thank you.
So we were right on that. And you're going to get your wish. I am going to go with the Florida Panthers. I
Nice.
will. So I've doubted this team every step of the way. In my bracket, of course, I had the Boston Bruins in the Cup Finals against the Edmonton Oilers. I had Edmonton winning the finals. So in retrospect, I should go with Vegas because they were the team that took out Edmonton in round 2, a pretty deep Oilers roster. But I'm going to go with Florida, man. I've doubted them enough. I love the way Matthew Tkachuk is playing for them. I think he is the heartbeat of that team, as I said in the Let Us Explain episode that I did. 3 out of 4 game winners in that sweep over Carolina in the Eastern Conference Finals. Bobrovsky has been unbelievable. The only edge that I would give to the Vegas Golden Knights is the depth on the blue line with Pietrangelo and Theodore, McNabb, Whitecloud, the list goes on. And don't get me wrong, I mean, Florida's blue line is just the Ekblad and Montour and Forsling and those guys have had to be that much better. But that's really where Vegas is stronger, I think, is the depth on the blue line. But look, I mean, Florida's got lots of depth from top to bottom in that forward group. And I think that if there is between Hill and Bobrovsky, I'm going with Bobrovsky to shut the door, and I could see where there are those nights where Vegas is just out shooting them like crazy, and Bobrovsky is able to shut things down and keep the Panthers in it. So I'm going to go with Florida in 7 games. I'm not doubting them any longer. I think Matthew Tkachuk is, if I'm going with Florida to win it, and Matthew Tkachuk for the Conn Smythe Trophy, and I think that it's got to get done in 7 games if the Panthers are going to do it.
I think when you look at goaltending, though, like if 3 months ago I told you that Bobrovsky and Adin Hill would be facing off in the Stanley Cup Finals, you'd be shocked. So I'm not saying that anyone is really a favorite in my mind, except the way Bobrovsky has been playing so far in these playoffs makes him the favorite. And, it's the only thing when you look at the advantage going into this last round, the Stanley Cup final here, is that Florida has had these days off to recover, which is well needed because they have bumped and bruised their way through it. Whereas Vegas, it just seems like there hasn't been a ton of adversity going into the final round for them. They seem to be on cruise control the whole playoffs. I don't know. It was kind of close with Edmonton, I'd say, but there hasn't been much adversity. And going into the Stanley Cup finals like that, that's a scary way to be.
Well, they lost their starting goalie, right? So that was one thing. Like Aiden
But they
Hill,
had 5 starting goalies.
They
so
did.
it's like
they do have the depth there. But it was, that was something going into the playoffs. Like, that was a concern, goaltending, and then they weren't really sure who was going to start. And then now all of a sudden, Aiden Hill's the guy, and he's been good. So, I mean, that's a bit of adversity right there in and of itself. But in terms of the rest, though, Case, I'm glad you brought that up. In terms of the rest, do you think that's a good thing for Florida, having all these days off? Because Game 1 isn't until Saturday, which, by the way, that's crazy. I don't know why we're waiting that long. But Saturday is Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. Do you think it's a good thing for the Panthers to have all those days off? Or could it be a bad thing where they just, at that point, they won't have played a game in 10 days? Whereas Vegas will also be rested. They'll have, a 4 or so day break, and then they'll be equally rested and ready to go. Like, do you think it's an advantage to have 10 days off?
Yeah, I do.
I personally don't.
I think it's an advantage when both of the teams have a long period. It's not like either team is going to hold on to momentum. Like, it's a long period of break for both of them. So the longer of the longers is better here, especially like Matthew Tkachuk on TNT there with the basketball group. Don't let me talk about basketball ever, I guess. He said it. He's like, we want the rest. We need the rest. Like, we're all bumped.
Yeah.
So I think it does matter. Now, maybe if it was like Vegas came off their win and then 2 or 3 nights later, they're right back into a game and Florida's been off for 10 days. Yeah, maybe that's a disadvantage. But I think since it's such a long break and Florida's is even longer, I don't think it really plays a factor.
Fair enough. It was just something I wanted to bring up because, like, obviously momentum in the playoffs, whether you believe in it or not, I think it is a real thing, and that does happen. And I specifically look at it from a goaltending perspective. Just when you're in the net and you're in that zone and you feel like nothing can beat you, clearly how Bobrovsky felt through the first 3 rounds, then you don't want to take days off because then your timing gets mixed up and, then you have to treat those practices as if they're Stanley Cup playoff games and they're just not the same. So for me, it was a timing thing.
Here's the mentality of these 2 different teams right now. There's one team going, we're the 8th seed. We just swept a very good team. We get a long break to recover, and then we take on Vegas. And the other team's going, holy, we just about blew that. And now we're taking on these freaking nature Florida Panthers in 5 days. I don't know.
That's a good point.
For Florida too, though. Sorry, Harvey.
They almost screwed a 3-game advantage.
They did. They almost did that. For Florida too, though, to play devil's advocate here and to kind of reiterate what you're saying, Case, is maybe the rest is actually important for them and it's not a mental thing or a timing thing, and they will actually benefit from all those days off because, after Florida beat the Leafs, they had the longest break of any team after the second round, and then they went into Carolina and absolutely dismantled that franchise in 4 games. So, I mean, maybe it's not that big of a deal for a guy like Bobrovsky, but maybe for the average goalie it is. So maybe it's just a personnel thing. Who knows?
Now, when we're talking Conn Smythe here, I didn't really give my picks like Harper did. If Florida wins, I think despite how good Officer Bob has been, I'm still giving the Conn Smythe to Tkachuk. His on-ice goal percentage is 79.4%. So he is just controlling the play. His Corsi's 61%. His on-ice expected goals is 63.8%, which is telling me he's being clutch because he's scoring above expected and they're game-winning goals. Was he at 4 or 5 now? It's been phenomenal. I heard someone, I don't even remember who it was, say like, oh, it would have been nice if he gave Bobrovsky a heads up like that they're going to do the skate right off the ice thing. But you think those guys are sitting in the dressing room going, hey guys, if we win this game, I'm just going to jump off and it'll be really cool, okay? They're not thinking about that. They're thinking about what they have to do in the next 5 minutes. So that was annoying. But yeah, Tkachuk's been phenomenal. Like everything he's doing for this team right now is some real leadership stuff, and it's been impressive. Now, if Vegas wins, I think it's pretty up in the air who wins Conn Smythe at this rate. I think maybe Marchessault. He's scored some pretty big goals himself. He's up to, I think, 9 goals now as well. He's been great. So, Vegas, it's going to be, I don't know, flip a coin.
Well, pick one. Pick a guy.
Yeah, I'm going to say Marchessault.
Okay. And Harp, who did you say for your Conn Smythe picks? And now, a word from our sponsors. This podcast is sponsored by Liquid IV. Whether you're staying active or nursing a hangover, Liquid IV has you covered. Just 1 stick of Liquid IV in 16 ounces of water hydrates faster and more efficiently than water alone. It contains 5 essential vitamins, B3, B5, B6, B12, and vitamin C, with 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks. It's made with premium ingredients, it's non-GMO, and it's free from gluten, dairy, and soy. There are plenty of awesome flavors, but my personal favorite right now is lemon lime. So get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code boys_in_the_booth at checkout. That's 20% off anything in the store when you order using the promo code boys_in_the_booth at liquidiv.com. Experience better hydration today with Liquid IV. This podcast is also sponsored by the best ticket app out there, SeatGeek. SeatGeek takes the confusion out of buying tickets, making it quick and easy to get the best deals on tickets to your favorite sporting events. Plus, Boys in the Booth listeners get $20 off their first ticket purchase on SeatGeek with the promo code BoysInTheBooth in all caps. So click the link in the description down below to download the app, and remember to get your discounted tickets using the code BoysInTheBooth in all caps. Get great seats for a fraction of the cost with SeatGeek.
Yeah, I kind of jumped the gun on it. I obviously Tkachuk is my pick for Florida. I just think that the whole team kind of goes off of him. And then for Vegas, I mean, I was kind of thinking Marchessault as well, but just to be different on it, I guess I'll go with the goaltender, Adin Hill, and this incredible run that he's been on. I know it may be a bit of a short sample size, but or a small sample size, excuse me, but I'll go with the goaltender in Vegas.
I think you're both wrong. Like, I know it's a pick and it's an opinion thing, but Bobrovsky has been otherworldly. I think we're forgetting about, what he did in the previous 2 rounds. Like in the second round against the Maple Leafs, they had absolutely no business being in games 1 or 2, but Bobrovsky made 50 saves in game 2, I believe, and absolutely stole the show. It wasn't even close. Bobrovsky was the best player by a landslide. And Matthew Tkachuk, I don't think had a single goal in the second round. So that's something to chew on too. I know he had a great third round, but maybe that's a little bit of recency bias coming through. What Bobrovsky is doing, I truly think, even if they lose, and I've heard this argument, even if they lose, Florida that is, Bobrovsky still has a legitimate shot at winning the Conn Smythe, because I think he's been that good.
I think the voting is going to be Tkachuk 1 and Bobrovsky 2, and then a Cliff and whoever else, for Hagee, I guess.
Well, yeah. I just don't.
I think it's going to be close, but I don't see how Tkachuk isn't important when he's the absolute energy of this team. He's like controlling the play constantly when he's on the ice. He plays a ton. He hits everything that moves. He has scored multiple overtime goals to get them into this round. Like, yeah, Bob had to stop a lot of shots to get them into overtime as well. But like, when the game is on the line, it's Tkachuk getting them through.
I guess, but I mean, if we look at round 2, who stole that series? Bobrovsky, not Tkachuk. If we look at round 3,
1, I don't think it was really Bobrovsky though.
Right. I mean, well, arguable though, because they were down until he came in.
Right.
And he was
unbeatable. But I think yeah. I don't know.
Like, you're right.
We're gonna see. Like, it's.
I know. Yeah. I just think like. I think we're forgetting how good this performance is because of Matthew Tkachuk, and obviously like scoring multiple game-winning overtime goals is incredible. Like, I'm taking nothing away.
Two things, Chad.
Yeah, go ahead.
Harper,
go ahead.
I think we're forgetting, Harper, is that Chad's a goalie. And I think every other sentence is goals above expected on the podcast. So
could be.
Might be something going on there. And I think the other thing we're forgetting is that both of us said, wow, Bobrovsky's done nothing. Tkachuk deserves to win the Conn Smythe.
No.
You're saying we're forgetting about this performance.
No.
I'm not forgetting about the performance. He's been unreal.
Yeah.
I think the voting is going to be like, I don't know, if it's out of 100,000 votes, it's going to be like 40,000 Tkachuk, 37,000 Bobrovsky. Like, I don't.
First of all, how many writers do you think there are who vote?
I don't know.
Casey?
Man, I know nothing. I never know what the awards are. They're all voted differently. They're all voted at different times. They all have a different amount of votes. They're all voted by different people. It's like, I don't know. I'm just saying, if there was 100,000 votes, that's the way it would be.
Why was the GM of the Year award voted after the second round? That makes absolutely no sense. Are you rewarding a team for their
GM has it?
Like, are you rewarding a team for their regular season or for their first 2 rounds of the playoffs or both or the full season including the playoffs? Like, take your pick. Like, make it make sense.
The NHL's like, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So listen, I just wanted to bring some attention to it. Yes, maybe I'm a bit biased because I'm a goalie myself. Yes, maybe I'm secretly rooting for this guy to win the Conn Smythe so that I can say, see, the Leafs got goalied. Like, that's what happened. Like, he was just that good. But I think there's also an element of truth in what I'm saying here, in that he's just been otherworldly, and this could be, one of the best goaltending performances we've seen since maybe 2014, Jonathan Quick. Was that the year he was really good, or was it 2012?
2012, yeah. It was the 2012 Kings, and I mean, those comparisons have been out there like wildfire. But no, I know what you're saying, man. This performance by Bobrovsky has been unbelievable, and we're not discounting that fact at all. But
absolutely not.
No. But I look at Tkachuk, and he. For me, he is the one who drives them. Like, 2 hands on the wheel, he drives them.
Except for in the second round, because he had no goals. But yeah, no, I hear you. Like, I hear you, but there's just, I feel like consistency matters. I know Bob didn't start the playoffs, but every game he's played, he's been pretty damn good. And I think the performance we're seeing is pretty historic. So if I were to guess, I think he legit has a shot to win it, even if they lose. That's the point I wanted to get out there, because he's been great. And he loses 15 pounds a game, which is just insane. So give it to the weirdo for just being a weirdo.
Yeah, he must drink so much water before the game and then go, look how much weight I lost. No, I think either one of those guys deserves it. They're both doing phenomenal things for this team, and I don't know, there's been 3 goalies to win it since in the last 10 years, 20 years. Yeah. In the last 20 years, there's been 3
was probably
goalies.
The last one. Wait, did Vasi win it one year?
Vasilevsky, Quick, and Cam Ward.
And Cam Ward, okay.
Right, 2000.
So there's been 3 in the last 20 years, so I feel like there's been a lot of good goalie performances. maybe the best goalie performances always lose because they play for the New York Rangers, but I don't know.
Well, and the thing about this is too, though, if Bobrovsky even has like one or two tough games and Tkachuk, gets like a point a game and is fine, he can kind of coast to it because then Bobrovsky's numbers will not look very good. And all of the work that he did coming into this final series like kind of means nothing. Whereas Tkachuk, like those points stay on the board. They don't fluctuate, right? So yeah. I like if you want to argue it that way, I hear you 100%. That makes a lot of sense because, Tkachuk has a bad game. We don't really talk about his odds going down, but then if Bobrovsky does, it's, front and center, and he could be the reason why they lose. Yeah, so
I guess I'm just picking the likely person to win this award, and that's yeah.
If we're talking probabilities, it makes a lot of sense. For Vegas,
the guy has 21 points in 16 games.
Yeah, it's
pretty sick.
Yeah,
but they're both good.
McDavid and Draisaitl though last year had over 2 points a game. They had 30 points.
How many game-winning goals did they have?
I'm just saying they only played two rounds and they had more points than Tkachuk.
And they only played 2 rounds.
I know. I'm just saying. But I didn't pick for Vegas. Can I pick for Vegas, boys, just quickly?
Yeah. I promise. Yes, you can. Go ahead.
This will be quick, and I'm not picking Aiden Hill because although he's been good, the sample size is too small, and it doesn't make sense, Harper, so I disagree with that pick, though I respect your opinion. I'm picking Jack Eichel, just to rub salt in the wound. I think that would be my pick for the Conn Smythe on Vegas. That's it.
Great. They could potentially be 2019 all over again. O'Reilly gets shipped out, goes to St. Louis, they win the cup, he gets the Conn Smythe, and so we could see this again with Eichel and the Golden Knights. And look, he's been fantastic. He didn't have he was under a point per game in the regular season, which for a $10 million player is not great. But coming off that big surgery and first full season and all of that, but he has been fantastic for them. He has been a play driver for the Golden Knights. So, it'll be interesting to see. Hot take for sure that one of Eichel or Reinhart, the two former Sabre stars, are going to win the Stanley Cup.
That's going to happen. One of two.
Yeah.
One of them could also win the Conn Smythe. And you mentioned Jack Eichel being just under a point per game in the regular season. In his last 82 total games, 83 points. That includes playoffs as well. So, guy steps it up when it matters. So, good for him.
And a couple of things I wanted to point out as well. Like we said, who would have thought that the two goaltenders in the Stanley Cup Finals would be Aiden Hill and Sergei Bobrovsky? How about these coaches? Paul Maurice, who I thought was finished and was basically going to retire after he left the Winnipeg Jets. Didn't expect him to be here. And the same goes for Bruce Cassidy as well. He gets let go in Boston, and then we all expected Boston to be here. Case and I did after the incredible season that they had, but it's the former Bruins coach Cassidy behind the bench with Vegas that's here. So that's incredible. And looking at these two rosters, it's really interesting. And Jeff Merrick was the one who pointed this out, but you always hear the way to build a team is through the draft, and I absolutely agree with that. But you look at these two teams, man, a lot of their big names, key contributors, stars, they're all trades and free agent signings. It's absolutely nuts. Tkachuk, trade. Reinhart was a trade. Brandon Montour was a trade, just to name a few. You look at the Vegas side of things. Jack Eichel was a trade. Pietrangelo, free agent signing. And there are others in there. Aiden Hill was acquired for really a late round pick from San Jose, and there are others in there as well. But I thought that was a really good thing to bring up.
I agree. I also heard Merrick say that. And I was thinking to myself, while yes, that's true, a lot of those players are, not drafted by the team they're currently playing for. They're acquired through trade or even, waiver claims. Like, a guy we always bring up is Gustav Forsling, right? Yeah. That's one of your favorite waiver claims to bring up because he's a rock there, and 31 other teams didn't think he was that good. So, that's pretty incredible. But I thought it was almost more fair to frame it as, teams who manage their assets well. Because,
that's true.
Because Florida, yes, a lot of those players are acquired through trade or even free agency, but you have to be able to manage your cap, first of all, to do that. And they had times throughout the season where, they wanted to activate Anthony Duclair, who has been a really good player for them in the playoffs this year, and they couldn't because they didn't have the cap space. So I feel like just being a general manager who's willing to part with either your young pieces to get good players back in a trade to win now, or being willing to, move cap space around to make it work. Obviously those are both really important. So that's how I would frame it. These two teams have both been ruthless and pretty efficient with managing their assets. Even though when you look at Vegas, in terms of asset management, they didn't get a lot back for guys like Marc-Andre Fleury or Max Pacioretty, but they got them off the books and brought in other money. So interesting.
Yeah, they really value cap space for sure.
Your head scout would be giving you a message in EA Sports if you played the way Vegas plays at GM mode, because
exactly.
They sign so many players to contracts and then trade them instantly, and then draft everyone and trade all their first round pick. Not their first round picks, but the guys they picked in the first round. It's it's really not a team that's been built through the draft, Harper. Like you said, it's been all trades for those guys and signings. It's a lot easier to sign guys in Vegas and Florida in the Sun Belt and in the taxless states than Winnipeg.
Yeah, exactly.
No kidding.
And I think that's a good word to describe both of these teams and the way that these two GMs, Kelly McCrimmon in Vegas and Bill Zito in Florida, the way they've done things, ruthless, I think is the key word there. And, I look at Florida especially, and at the time that blockbuster deal went down, I talked about this in our last episode on the Panthers, but we saw that as Florida absolutely getting fleeced in that deal with the Calgary Flames. But the Flowers arranged themselves this year, and Tkachuk has proved that he is, he can be a go-to guy and has been different in these playoffs. So it's going to be interesting to watch for sure.
Yeah, talk about ruthless. You're setting multiple franchise records for us in points and points in a season, etc. MVP voting player. You didn't get it done in the playoffs. We're going to trade you for someone who does.
Yeah, or not even franchise records case, most assists in a single season by a left winger ever in NHL history. That's, and then, you're gone. See you later. I will say though, hindsight's 20/20, right? At the time, we thought that was a massive win for the Flames. Now it looks like a massive win for Florida. I think there's somewhere in the middle that this trade is going to play out. And Mackenzie Weegar, Mackenzie Weegar being the defenseman of the tournament at the World Championships over the past week, he's going to have something to say about it next year because he didn't have a fantastic season. And then Jonathan Huberdeau had his worst season ever. And I think he's going to come out next year and have something to say about it too. So even though it looks like right now, and especially if Florida wins the Cup and Matthew Tkachuk wins the Conn Smythe, it's going to look like an absolute fleece by Florida. I wouldn't be so quick to judge. I think we need to see the contracts of all players kind of play themselves out and see where the team success is, because those are two pretty damn good players on Calgary now too. So.
Well, the new head coach is going to be the key there for sure, and that's why trades are so interesting. That's why you can't say that this is a win one way or another right off the bat. You look at I think you look at the Eichel deal. That's a win-win for both franchises involved in Buffalo and Vegas, and then you look at how terrible that looked, the trade, the O'Reilly deal, how terrible that looked for a while there for Buffalo, and now it looks really good. So that's the interesting thing about trades. But anyway, I think that does it for this one, boys. Again, we've got a pretty big break here. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals will be on Saturday, and one of these two franchises is going to hoist their first Stanley Cup ever. So thanks so much for listening to episode 172. Enjoy the rest of the nice weather, and we'll talk to you again soon.
This has been another episode of Boys in the Booth with Harper Cody, Chad Melbourne, and Casey Abrams. Connect with the Boys in the Booth on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Boys in the Booth. Visit boysinthebooth.com for show details. And don't forget, you can become a patron of the podcast for just $1 a month at patreon.com/boysinthebooth.